You're here to understand what 23andMe is all about.
Ann Wojcicki, can I just ask you, do you feel as good as you look?
You have got about 500,000 genotyped customers. You want tens of millions of people.
Understand what are the things that you could potentially do to be as healthy as possible. Learn about your DNA, learn about your ancestry, learn about your health risks, but also give you the opportunity to opt in to research. Over 80% of our customers opt into research.
Your DNA is organized into 23 pairs of chromosomes.
A year from now, 23andMe will be growing and thriving.
Her sister, former YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki, and her nephew both died earlier this year. The company, once worth $6 billion, has lost 98% of its value, laid off 40% of its staff. In September, her entire board of 7 independent directors suddenly resigned. And now there's word that Ann has resigned and 23andMe has filed for bankruptcy protection. I know how hard Ann worked, and I know how much she loves this company.
That's when concerns of what could happen to users' data started surfacing.
And your genetic journey is about to begin.
Once worth $6 billion, 23andMe has collected genetic data from over 15 million customers through at-home DNA testing kits using saliva samples. 23andMe lost 98% of its value, was delisted from the NASDAQ, and deregistered with the SEC. The company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So, what happened? Well, we'll get into that. But first, let's start at the beginning. This may not be where everybody will start, but this is where I'll start. Sergey Brin and Larry Page met in 1995 at Stanford University. They soon after partnered up and launched a search engine company, originally Backrub, and soon after that Google, in Susan Wojcicki's garage. Susan went on to become employee number 16 and later the CEO of YouTube. Susan's sister Ann met Sergey in 1998. They would marry in 2007. In 2006, Ann Wojcicki co-founded 23andMe with Linda Avey and Paul Cosenza. The team worked out of a small office in Palo Alto. They set out to revolutionize genetic testing by offering a direct-to-consumer model. They spent their early days meeting with regulators, building an advisory committee, and figuring out how to give people direct access to their genetic information. Ann proposed the name for the company through the following email. The name 23andMe is derived from 3 elements. 23 pairs of chromosomes in our DNA, one set from each parent. And people want to know what it means for them. And if you reverse and, it spells DNA. Me, it's all relative to and about our customers. It's their DNA. It's their choice. We also believe in 23andWe. Collective me's can change the world. Ann Wojcicki. The early designs for the company logo drew inspiration from bright, fruit-flavored candy. Through the years, the logo remained a fun, colorful symbol of the accessibility and curiosity at the heart of 23andMe. And then it was time for spit parties.
There's a group of Singularity students here. We have these crazy looking tubes brought to us by 23andMe. We're gonna spit in them all the way up to here, and then we're going to close the cap and we're going to send it off to 23andMe. It's going to tell us all about what's in our genes, like diabetes or like whatever. I don't know what's going to happen. Have a race. Go for it. I love any spit.
It says you can take 2 to 5 minutes.
By the way, this is totally gross, but it's fun.
Science can be gross and fun.
Order your 23andMe kit online. After your kit arrives in the mail, read and follow the instructions.
We get to spit?
You get to spit. Fill the collection tube to just above the fill line. Securely snap the cap to the tube, which releases the DNA stabilization buffer solution. Place the cap tube in a small plastic bag. Seal the bag and return it to the original box. Peel the strip and seal the box closed. Then ship.
In 2007, Google provided funding of $3.6 million for 23andMe. In 2008, they invested another $2.6 million. When 23andMe first launched their direct-to-consumer genetic testing service in November 2007, The initial price for the kit was $999. By 2008, the price of the kit had lowered to $399. In 2013, the company launched its first television campaign, which was called Portraits of Health. It featured people sharing what they learned from their 23andMe reports. Some of the people discovered unknown ancestry or insights about traits like blue eyes or curly hair. Others learned information about possible genetic risk related to their health. In 2013, 23andMe received a warning letter from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, to discontinue marketing its health-related genetic test in the United States until it completed the agency's regulatory review process. The company complied and until October 2015 provided only ancestry reports and raw data to consumers who purchased the service. In October 2015, the new 23andMe experience was released, which was the first direct-to-consumer test available directly to individuals in the United States that included reports that met FDA requirements for being scientifically and clinically valid. On April 6, 2017, 23andMe was granted authorization by the FDA to market late-onset Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and hereditary thrombophilia genetic health risk reports, along with other reports. In September 2017, 23andMe raised $250 million in a round led by Sequoia Capital, a new investor of the company. That brought its total funding to $490.7 million and its valuation to around $1.8 billion. The company was still quiet about a potential IPO. Other investors during previous rounds included Fidelity and Google. On March 6, 2018, 23andMe received the first ever FDA authorization for a direct-to-consumer genetic test for cancer risk. The authorization allowed 23andMe to provide customers, without a prescription, information on 3 genetic variants in the genes known to be associated with higher risk for breast, ovarian, prostate, and pancreatic cancer. As of May 2018, 23andMe claimed to have more than 5 million customers worldwide. They said 80% of those customers were willing to share the results of their data to help further research for cures and treatments. They offered 2 types of information customers could purchase. For $99, they could receive information about their ancestry and where relatives once lived around the world. For $199, customers received that information as well as dozens of reports on their genetic health risk and wellness measures. In October of 2018, 23andMe provided the first FDA authorization for direct-to-consumer genetic reports on pharmacogenetics, which provides information on how DNA may influence the processing of certain medications. Listening to multiple interviews from Ann Wojcicki over the years in preparation for this video, it really seemed like she focused on the healthcare and the future of medication and just processing people's information that would allow them to be aware and be proactive as far as certain health conditions and certain risks that they may have. Really a scientific and calculated approach to studying one's DNA. Unfortunately, everyone I know who ordered a kit on 23andMe was really just interested in their percentage makeup as far as how European they were or how African they were. A lot of people were interested to see the percentage of Native American or Jewish ancestry. And that's not something that's going to lead to continual customers. Because once you find out your genetic makeup, your percentage of European, African, etc., you're probably not going back and spending more money with the organization. Now, if you're using it to figure out, oh, well, what can I do as far as making sure I don't later on develop diabetes or other issues, yes, you can have follow-up tests, you can run more information. But as far as my inner circle, people I know weren't doing that, which really leads to you only purchasing a test one time and doing business with one of these organizations one time, which doesn't ultimately end up being the best business model. In 2020, 23andMe and Ancestry both had layoffs. Ancestry.com was acquired by private equity firm Blackstone Group for $4.7 billion in 2020. And sales were really beginning to drop for 23andMe. And executives at the time had that fear and that concern that people were only using the service once, which if you're just using it to see your genetic makeup as far as your ethnicity, then that makes a lot of sense. In addition to that, there was also concerns about DNA privacy risk. The company introduced a premium subscription product in 2020 that it hoped would make up for the lack of recurring revenue from its test kits, but that did not pan out. In 2021, 23andMe merged with VG Acquisition Corp., a special purpose acquisition company founded by billionaire Richard Branson, to go public. The deal valued the consumer genetic testing company at $3.5 billion, including debt. VG Acquisition Corp. Changed its New York Stock Exchange ticker symbol, and the combined company's securities began trading under the new ticker symbol ME. The stock and cash transaction was expected to deliver up to $759 million of gross proceeds through the contribution of up to $509 million of cash held in VG Acquisition Corp's trust account and a concurrent $250 million private placement in public equity of common stock priced at $10 per share. Wojcicki and Branson each invested $25 million into the $250 million pipe. Other investors included Fidelity Management and Research Company LLC, Altimeter Capital, Kasdan Capital, and Foresight Capital. Current shareholders of 23andMe then owned 81% of the combined company. A merger with a special purpose acquisition company, or SPAC, allowed 23andMe to go public without the uncertainty of holding an initial public offering. Wojcicki told the Wall Street Journal in 2021 that the company was shifting away from Ancestry to focus on the health market. "We have always seen health as a much bigger opportunity," she said. Unfortunately, the market didn't agree with her, and investing in much bigger health opportunities requires a lot more funding, which may not always be available for an organization. And in October of 2023, hackers accessed the information for around 7 million customers. So the concern and trepidation of customers and potential customers around data privacy and data leaks with their DNA information was actualized, and that is not a place that an organization wants to be in. The company reported a $312 million net loss in the 2023 fiscal year, and by September 2023, 23andMe's share price slid below $1. In July 2024, Wojcicki submitted a proposal to take the company private in July, but it was rejected by a special committee because the proposal did not provide a premium to the closing price of 40 cents per share at the time. In September 2024, all of 23andMe's independent directors resigned. They cited frustration with Wojcicki's strategic differences in her vision for the company. By October 2024, the company had lost 98% of its value. Soon after, it was given a deadline to keep its share price above $1 and locate new board members to remain listed on the NASDAQ. In November 2024, 23andMe cut around 40% of its workforce, which was about 200 employees, and discontinued development of its therapies. Wojcicki stepped down from 23andMe on March 24, 2025, when the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. In May of 2025, 23andMe announced its intention to file a Form 25 notification of delisting with the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, on or about June 6, 2025, to remove its securities from listing and registration on NASDAQ. In June 2025, a nonprofit led by Ann Wojcicki, the co-founder and former chief executive of 23andMe, won a bid to acquire the genetic testing company. Wojcicki's California-based nonprofit, TTAM Research Institute, will purchase 23andMe for $305 million. The acquisition was completed on July 14, 2025. 23andMe will continue to operate and provide its customers with DNA testing and research services, but will now be structured as a nonprofit.